All right, thank you everyone for joining our Zoom with Phil Trautwein. Please raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Start with Tyler Donahue.
Good morning, Phil. How you doing today?
Good man, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. It's obviously our first chance to chat with you since the head coach change. I'm curious, what was your reaction to what happened to James Franklin, the guy who brought you into the program, and how are you personally navigating the final stretch of this season, considering the uncertainty that everyone's kind of dealing with?
Yeah, I know, everyone says it's part of the business, but it was sad. Someone that believed in me, brought me here, and I never wanted to see that. That's why we work as hard as we do. We do as coaches, and we're here to help and guide and be great role models for these guys. And at the same time, we have to win. So when that doesn't happen, for me, I feel like I failed Coach Franklin because he got let go, and so it's tough. But as fast as that happened, I had to, I got a great group of guys, an O-line room that still have big time goals, and I have to focus on the next task at hand, which is to be 1-0. And so, we just went in to try to be 1-0, and hasn't happened yet. But, the guys are working, they're getting better, and that's all I can ask. And all we're concentrating on right now is to go beat Michigan State. So that's our mindset, and then let the end of the season see what happens after that.
Rich Carcello.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning, Phil. Thanks for your time. How would you assess the play of your guys through 9 games? And secondly, if I may, can you give us a progress report on Javen? Where is he? I know he had that injury early in the year.
Yep. Just it always comes down to winning football games. So when you're not winning, you have to look at yourself and say you're not playing well enough to, win. So even if we were 9-0 right now, and we weren't weren't playing good, at least we were doing enough to win the game. So for me, I'm that's how I look at it. And we need to get better, keep getting better. There's some really good plays, and there's some plays I would love to take back, but that's part of football. So, I know, I got guys that are, trying to do everything they can for the NFL, and some of them are getting better and just have to continue to get better. And then Javen, yeah, Javen kind of just, had a little injury, and it's kind of still setting him back. Hasn't really been able to do much, but hopefully, he can keep getting better and maybe have a chance to play later.
Rick Pickle.
Coach, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just curious, when you went back and watched the tape, you guys had a lot of success on offense, both through the air and on the ground in the second half against Indiana. Anything stand out to about what your guys did to help that process?
Yeah, that was a really good, defense. I think they were number one and number two in a lot of things. They did a really good job of getting penetration. That was their thing that they kind of counted on, and then the linebackers making plays, and we just made sure we had our eyes in our gap. We zoned our gap. We made sure we didn't allow penetration, and then because of that, we were able to throw the ball and do things, because we were able to run the ball. It always starts with that, and Coach Goldnick, called some really good plays and had some good sequences of play calls, and we were able to keep them guessing, and not all of them worked, but at the same time we were able to move the ball and be able to confuse them, and that's what this offense is made to do.
Daniel Gallup.
Good morning, Phil. Thanks for your time this morning. Um, Vang is someone who came into the year with some buzz at the next level, and it seems that that has picked up a little bit over the course of the year. Some mock drafts have him as a first round pick. What has he done to keep improving, and where do you feel like he is right now in his development?
Yeah, I think he's one of the best guards in the country. He's continued to get better. He's really working on his pass pro, and I think his run blocking is really good as well. And we do all different things with him As you guys know, we motion shift him, we make him a tight end, 6'0" lineman, so he's really smart. So a lot of, if you look at and you ask scouts, what are you looking for? They want, great players, but also smart players and guys that love ball. And Venga's one of those guys. So now that he's being consistent out on the football field, and they also are finding out about all the other intangibles that he has, like, I know one of you guys had him, jumping over at USC, jumping over the railing and helping, the equipment guys. That's just who he is, and that's how he was raised. And his story is really cool. If you ask him about him growing up and what he's been through and where he's been, it's incredible. And that's just type of kid he is, and that's what we have in this program, and that's why none of them are really phased about what's going on because they're locked in and they understand the big picture. And it's kind of cool that he's doing what he's doing and getting better every single week.
Audrey Snyder.
Hey Phil, thank you for your time this morning. Bigger picture, I mean, we all talked in the off season with you and with the players about the Moore Award and the expectations and maybe this being the best O-line since '94 and all these kinds of things. How do you kind of describe what happened? I mean, how would you summarize how you all kind of got to this point with this particular line?
Man, that's a good question. I coming into the season, we all thought that, and kind of just have to look at ourselves as coaches and just making sure that we did everything we could. I still think that we have a lot of talent in the O-line room. Like we just talked about, Vanga is going to be a first rounder. Drew Shelton's going to be drafted, possibly Nick Dawkins and Nolan Rucci. Who knows? So we have that. We just have to play more consistent as an offensive line, and we just have to make sure we do our job every single play. And we didn't do that to be able to win the games. And so because of that, and when you're 3-6, it's hard to win the Joe Moore Award, and it's hard to say that we're the best O-line in the country. So and that's kind of just, I mean, it stinks. I would love to do, I would do anything to be on this call right now, being 9-0 and be in the semifinals for the Joe Moore Award, but it isn't. I'm not. But I know that I have an opportunity on Saturday to go and win a football game versus Michigan State, who's a pretty good team as well. So that's all I can really focus on and just keep getting better.
Joe Smeltzer.
Appreciate the time today, Phil. You mentioned Nick Dawkins. How would you describe his play on the field for 9 games this season and off the field? What has his leadership meant to this team over the past month?
Yeah, I know guys like him, Vanga, and there's other guys in the team, as well. But just thinking about the O-line room, those guys have helped keep everybody together, and kind of just making sure they understand that we still got a game to play. We're not quitters. We're going to make sure we give everything we got and finish this season out, for us and for the fans. And if you look at Nick, I think he's gotten better this year. You look at his, a lot of people look at PFF stats, but you look at how many pressures he had and all that stuff, it went down dramatically. He's really working on his pass pro. He's doing some really good things and, needs to keep working on some things as well, like everybody in football. But I think he's better than he was last year, which is great to see. And he's, just going to keep getting better. And he has 3 more opportunities to do that.
Tyler Donahue.
Phil, talking to you last year, it felt like everything kind of came easy for Anthony Donko. Maybe that's not right, it's the right way to say it, but he had a pretty seamless transition to tackle last year. It's been a little bit more maybe up and down for his usage this year and kind of where he's been on the field. I know he had maybe some injury issues during the course of the year as well. How would you describe what you've seen from his development here in year 3? And have you kind of come to a determination whether he's a guard, whether he's a tackle, and where maybe his long-term home is going to be?
Yeah, but he's played both right tackle and right guard all year. And it just kind of just depends on, who we're going against and, the other guys, if, who's healthy in the O-line room when it comes to guards and stuff like that. So I kind of been moving him around, but I think he's a guy that could play both. I think he's strong enough and powerful enough to play guard, and then he's athletic enough to play out in space. I would say probably if I had to say, probably best position is probably guard, but I think he can also play tackle, and that's why you see him out there playing tackle. So, but I think he's, a guy that is, getting better. He has some plays he'd love to take back. And also a lot of people don't know, like flipping like that throughout a game or throughout practice, because I only can give him so many practice reps at right guard, but then say, hey, you're going to play right tackle in the game because I have to make sure I get other guys in. So, that's also a trait and a skill that you have to learn through time. So that's where he's kind of still learning. It was kind of the same question that people had when I had Will Fries and I moved Will Fries to guard. And a lot of people were like, well, he's kind of struggling a little bit at guard. I was like, just wait. It's just hard to transition sometimes. And then you guys saw that he signed a 5-year, $88 million deal with the Vikings to be their right guard. So it just takes time, and it just sometimes you see it, when they're here at Penn State, or sometimes you see it, a couple years later when they're in the NFL. But that's his role, and that's what he can be, which is really, I mean, great because that's what they want. They want guys that can play both.
I have two more. We're just gonna solo.
Phil, how often have you talked to Frank Leonard, and how much have you and your guys missed him this year?
I talk to him twice a week, probably 3 times a week. Yeah, we miss him. He's a great person, great guy. Everybody in the offense team, he kind of is everybody everywhere. But yeah, we miss him. We love him. But it was his time. He wanted to be close to home. He's been away from his home for 6 years and finally felt like it was time to go home. But we talk, and I think some of the guys still talk to him on occasion and stuff like that. So, but yeah, love Coach Leonard.
Last question, Audrey Snyder.
Phil, kind of looking at Cooper Cousins and what you guys have been able to do with him this year, where do you think he's at kind of from a trajectory perspective, and how would you assess what he's been able to do up to this point?
Yeah, I love Coop. He's a heck of a football player. He could pretty much play anywhere on the offensive line. He continues to get better every single week, and as you see, he kind of has a bigger role. He's kind of that 6-0 lineman when we have him 7-0 lineman. Need to get him a little bit more, in there with the team, with the guys, in first, second down or whenever, taking series. But I just want to make sure that when he is out there, he's ready to go 100% and confident. And sometimes it takes guys a little bit longer. I think he's right there. But everybody's career is different, and Olu didn't start till his third year, and he could have left that year after 8 games. So, what that is, but I think he's a high draft pick. I think he's going to be an All-American here. It's just taking him a little bit time, and his time will come, and you guys will be able to see him, and you'll see what I mean.